Buenas noches, profesora. No se le escucha, profe.
Sí, ya lo puse, mamita. Buenas noches.
Bueno, ok. Buenas noches, profesora y estudiantes. Damos inicio con la clase número 4 de la materia Pedagogía General con la profesora Vivian Vargas. A continuación le estaré leyendo algunos parámetros para el buen desarrollo de esta sesión. Le pedimos seguir estas recomendaciones. Las sesiones se graban, pueden verlas nuevamente en plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencie su micrófono y pueda activarlo cuando quieran hacer alguna consulta o alguna una consulta o aportes con el permiso del docente. Le pedimos que mantenga su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirado de la sesión y le serán restados puntos en la heterovaloración del docente. Mi rol como moderador es apoyar en la parte técnica, consultas por el chat, personal o general. Le exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sesión. Esta sesión tiene un tiempo de duración de 60 minutos y sin más nada que agregar, le cedo la palabra a la profesora. Muchas gracias.
Muy, muy amable, gracias. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Good evening. How are you doing today? I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm happy to share this moment with you. Remember, as the lady said, the moderator said, we have 1 hour to share together and to get new knowledge. This is Pedagogía General, and today we are going to be talking one of the topics I like a lot. I like this subject a lot because it's very nice. And now we are going to talk about a topic I really enjoy talking about. Okay, so let's start by sharing what we have here. Let's go here. I always like to do this because it gives you the opportunity to locate yourself in time and to know how much you're missing, what you need, and things like that. So we are in Pedagogía General, and then for Pedagogía General, we have that we started on March 6th, 13, 2027. So as the lady said, this is class number 4. And then for class number 4, if we go to the scale of activities, we will find out where we should be today. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. Let's be patient a little bit because it's coming. Thank you. Class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. For class number 4, you remember last week we had to rush to see all this together. But for class number 3, we will have week 4 and 5. So this class and next week's class. That gives you the chance to complete things in a little bit more time, to watch the videos by yourself, to read the readings, to watch the class, to do everything that you have to do at your own pace, and to complete the assignments that we will check later for these 2 units. Okay, so today we are going to check only one objective, and next class we will check the other objective. Good? Good. Let's continue. So let's go to the, I've been checking, I entered to check certain things. I checked that someone made an assignment and uploaded, and I already checked it. Let me share it with you. But what I remember from that day was that what's the name? Here, I have 2 people with 2 different things. I already checked them. But I checked, and then I saw that in the forum, at least the day before yesterday that I checked them, I checked that there were no answers in the forum. And remember, this is a 5%. It says 0 vistas for number 2 and 2 vistas, but no answers for each of them. So I invite you to complete this. And as for the exercises for the test, let me go and look for this. And then we have number 1. Sorry. And these ones are corrected. And I don't know if number 2. Yeah, good. So let's have forums in our minds so we can go ahead and complete them. Now, let's go, please, to module number 3 for classes number 4 and 5 as we check. What are the topics for this module? The topics for this module are lesson plan and units, exploring and fixation. So lesson plan is one, okay? How to build a good lesson plan, that is one. And units, exploring and fixation is going to be the second topic, okay? Now, what are the instructions for this class? As always, we have instructions to follow, okay? And we talk about them every class, okay? This is the PowerPoint with the approval, and then we have the instructions. Get comfortable and with no distractions. It's important that you get comfortable as I am right now, and that nothing distracts you. No TV, no noises, no nothing. Try to take a look at this video of the class without any distraction, and not so tired you fall asleep. Read and understand objectives thoroughly. It's important that we read the objectives that we always do and we are going to do now, and that we understand what we're looking for. So at the end of the class, when we go back to them and we check them, we are able to say, oh, I got my objective for today. And then it says, do not skip tasks, okay? And then for this, it's important. It's important that you watch the class, but remember, it's important that before the class, you have watched the video one, the reading one, and read the reading one, and you have watched the video two and read the reading two. So you can come here and complete for anything that you didn't get thoroughly. And then after that, you go ahead and you work on your assignments, you work on your forum, and finally you work on your test, okay? Thank you. Let's continue. It says, the objectives, we already checked them. Identify correctly the 8 phases of a lesson plan. That is our objective for today, so watch it. Identify and develop correctly the 8 phases of a lesson plan, okay? And then next week, we will talk about recognize the structure of a good lesson plan, but that's gonna be next week. Today, we're gonna work on the 8 phases of a lesson plan. I think one of the videos talked about 8 and the thing talked about 7. There is kind of a differentiation there, but we're gonna be okay. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about this. Let's read the introduction, guys. Let me see if I can go ahead and make this a little bit. It says, a lesson plan is a teacher's detailed description of the course of instruction or learning trajectory for a lesson. A daily lesson plan is developed by a teacher to guide class learning. Details will vary depending on the preference of the teacher. This is important, the preference of the teacher. That's why we say in Spanish, cada maestro con su librito, because I can find that this is the best way to teach this, and then another teacher can find that according to his experience, to his knowledge and everything, and his way of being, his personality, that he can use another way of doing it. So it says, subject being covered, well, that is set by the school, and the needs of the student. Okay, that's something that you need to have into consideration. There may be requirements mandated by the school system regarding the plan. Okay, like for example, in my case, the school has a format for the lesson plan, and we have to follow that exact format. A lesson plan is the teacher's guide for running a particular lesson, and it includes the goal, what the students are supposed to learn, how the goal will be reached, the method and the procedure, and a way of measuring how well the goal was reached. Test, worksheet, homework. Okay, let's continue. And then now we have this. It says, video 1. How to plan lessons for all types of English students. Because remember, you are teaching English, right? Knowing how to speak English is not enough to have the skills to teach a lesson, let alone a lesson for English students. This video is going to give us some highlights on how to plan a lesson. Because yes, sometimes people think that because the person knows how to speak English, they are ready to speak English. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to have certain preparation. Some people are empirical, some people get it fast, but there needs to be certain preparation. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the video. Let me go ahead and share it. I have to open it first. Let me go ahead and share it so we can check the first video. How to plan lessons for all types of English learners. These are very nice videos. Let's go. Okay. Let me go here. Let me share it for you. Let's go. Share sound. Compartir sonido, because if not, you don't listen. And then let me open it a little bit so you don't have all that visual noise over there. Let's go. Right? Doesn't open? Okay. Now I'm going to be stopping so we can discuss this a little bit, okay, before we move on, and to make sure that we are understanding. Let's go.
Every teacher has been or will be asked to write a lesson plan at some point in their careers. I'm Andrea for What is ELT, and today we're going to talk about how to make lesson planning effective and, most importantly, useful for you to help your learners achieve their goals. Let's go! Like a map or a GPS, a lesson plan is a guide that can help you organize what learning and how learning will take place in your lesson. Having a plan can help you organize your ideas, it will definitely help your learners achieve their aims more successfully, and it can increase your confidence when you start teaching. But where...
Important. Every teacher needs to have a lesson plan. This is important because sometimes you can see teachers that improvise in the classroom, and that's the death. It's the worst thing a teacher can do. It's the worst thing for the students because they have no goal, and it's the worst thing for the teacher because the class will take forever, and then you will just be watching when the class is going to end because you just want to get rid of that, you know. So every teacher needs to have a lesson plan. Now you may have a lesson plan, and you may have, you know, that this is the lesson plan, they'll do this, they'll do that. But is the lesson plan going to take you where you want to be? Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to her.
Where shall we start when we start planning? Well, it's difficult to decide on a path if you don't know what your destination is. So the first thing that you have to think about is your lesson aim. The lesson aim.
Okay, so she is saying that before starting planning directly, you need to have a lesson aim, a lesson objective, a lesson goal. You need to know what at the end you want students to learn.
Aim involves something that you want to help your students become better at the end of the lesson. And the aim can be related to systems, skills, or it can also be a communicative aim. If you want to know more about lesson aims, you can watch our video by clicking on the card here or here. I don't know where the card is. After you know what your lesson aim is, it's time to decide how to get there and define the stages of your lesson. Different lesson types have different stages, and the important thing is to think about how the stages are leading to the lesson objective, if they are logically connected, and if they are helping learners achieve the aim. Some questions that you can ask yourself when you're planning the stages are the stages leading to the lesson objective? Are they logically connected? Are they giving enough support to the student for them to reach the aim?
Thank you. So the first thing is the lesson aim. We say in Colombia, el que no sabe dónde va, cualquier bus le sirve. And then it's what she said. You cannot go into a path if you don't know you cannot. Yeah, what's good of getting in the path if you don't know your destination? Which path you are going to choose, if you don't know your destination. So the same thing happens with a lesson. The first thing that you need to know is what you want students to learn at the end. What is what they want to say, I learned this, I didn't know. First. Second, the second step is the lesson stages, okay? And then the lesson stages are going to depend on what the goal is, okay? And then you will decide how you are going to divide it, okay?
For example, if you're teaching a grammar lesson, Are the activities that you propose gradually increasing the level of challenge, or is the difference too abrupt? Having questions like this in mind can help you stage the lesson coherently and provide the necessary scaffolding for learners to reach the aim successfully and confidently. Now that you know what the stages of your lesson are, you have to start thinking about how much time each activity will take. Allocating time can be a nightmare, but I promise that it becomes easier after some practice. The time that you allocate to each activity will depend on a number of factors: the level of complexity, and mainly the relevance for the activity for the achievement of the final aim. For example, in a reading lesson, most of the time should be dedicated to the phase where students are actually reading the text. A common mistake is to allocate a lot of time in the engagement phase, the phase where you set the context, set the scene, engage students. Then you realize that you've spent 30 minutes engaging and 10 minutes with the actual reading. That's why it's always very important to keep the main aim in mind when you are allocating time to the different phases of the lesson. We have the stages of the lesson, we know how much time we're going to spend on each stage. We have to start thinking about how all this is going to be facilitated in the lesson. And
Okay, good. So now she talks about the timing, and then she said something super important. She said you may start, introducing the lesson, and you may take too long over there, and then when it's time to work, the class is over. And that's what we don't want. Okay, we don't want to go with that long introduction, and then we don't have the time to do the rest. That's why timing is so important. That's the reason why timing is so important. That you need to know, okay, I'm going to dedicate to introduce the lesson, I'm going to dedicate 3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to check a very short video. If it's 5 minutes, 3-minute video, 2 minutes me talking, and then I go with the assignment of the lesson, or we go with the reading, or we go with with what they have to do. So this is super duper important. At the beginning, it's difficult. And also, the other part that is difficult is that not all classrooms are the same. I have classrooms, for example, 4 classrooms right now. And I have classrooms where in 1 hour, I do everything. And I have a classroom that happens to be my homeroom class. It takes me 2-3 classes to finish the same because these people are always talking, always, always, you see? So that's it. Let's go now. We have then the lesson A, the lesson objective, the goal for the lesson. Then we have the lesson stages, how I'm going to do that thing, and then I have the timing. I already have what time or how long I'm going to dedicate to each activity. Now let's go with the next one, procedures. What's that?
think about our procedures. The amount of detail in which you're going to describe your procedures really depends on your level of experience. Some teachers write every single thing that's gonna happen in the lesson, while others prefer just to jot down some bullet points. It doesn't really matter as long as you feel confident and comfortable to teach. In the procedures, you can also describe what types of patterns of interaction you're going to use throughout the lesson.
Okay, so we were talking about the procedures, and then when she was talking about the procedures, she was talking about the things that you are going to use to teach your lesson. And then she mentioned something interesting, that the more experience or the more confident you feel as a teacher, the easier it is for you to get your procedures. And then when you are going to fill out that form that the schools usually give you, and they tell you, this is our format, and you have to fill in this format for your daily plan or for your weekly plan. Some teachers, they write everything. Most of the teachers, they don't want to write everything. But this is where the school enters. Many schools require you to write every little thing. They want to know. And then if you said like, okay, then they will practice adjectives with a 30 question practice. Well, I need you to attach the practice. I need to see what the practice is. You see? And then so we go. Let's continue. And now she's talking about the patterns of interaction. Let's go.
Teacher, whole group, pairs, mingling. After you finish, take a look at the whole lesson to see the variety of patterns that you are offering your students. Are they having the chance to talk to different peers? Are they always talking to the same person? Is the lesson too teacher-fronted? Are you changing the patterns of interaction too much? Then, after you take a look at everything, you can decide if you're gonna keep the patterns that you have thought about or change them. For me, personally, one of the most useful things that I do when I plan a lesson or when I write a lesson plan is to think about things that can go wrong. When you anticipate...
Well, that's anticipation. So patterns of interaction is how students are going to be involved. Is individual, is in pairs, is in groups. Do they practice always the same with the same person? Or sometimes you tell them to move and talk to other people? You know, how do things work in that case? That could be the patterns of interaction. So at the end of your lesson, after you wrote your lesson, then you have to take a look at them. And then you have to say, okay, they are always working with the same person and they don't have the opportunity. These two people are good, but then these two people are weak. Should I make a change and have one good and one weak, one good and one weak? They will, you know, so they can help each other. I mean, the strong one can help the other one, you know, and I know I'm going to make this change. If you feel comfortable, you leave it like that. But if not, you can make certain changes just to make sure that your class goes as you want to. Let's go.
Problems and solutions, you can be better prepared to deal with things that might come up in the lesson or even prevent them before they actually happen. Difficulties may have to do with materials, classroom management, the topic of the lesson, external factors, or language. Language problems are more easily anticipated.
Thank you. Now, she talks about prepare for what can go wrong, and she calls it problems and solutions. And then this is important. Okay, what if they don't understand? Do I have extra examples to explain that grammar? Like, for example, my students, they didn't understand. We were working ellipses, puntos suspensivos, and we checked the theory. We made a couple of practices out loud. And then we came in and I made an 18-sentence practice for them to identify the reason why each of those 18 sentences were with ellipses, okay? We punctuated with ellipses. And there were there are three reasons. And then when they had the thing, guess what? They had seen it when I did it there, we did it there together and everything, but first, nowadays, they don't remember what they ate for breakfast. And the other thing is that they, when they had to do it on their own, by their own, they were lost. Most of them, they didn't get it, you see? So what I did is that I looked for some, they had the page, and I looked for extra examples. And then I re-explained certain things again. I want you to see, notice, it says the Supreme Court said, it says the critics claimed, it says in her autobiography, she stated, you know, and then you see that, can you see? Well, when you see that, it's because the person is quoting, and then the quote is not complete, and then they use ellipses. So they were like better. From there, when they came back to the practice, most of them were able to do it easily, okay? Because they were able to understand. And I told them, you have to read with intonation. You see, so, but I already had that file because I knew that in practice, they wouldn't know. And I gave them the practice had exactly the same format, not exactly the same sentences, exactly the same format that they are going to have in the test that they have next Tuesday. And that is part of the test because they have another literature part, but this is part of the test, grammar too. And so they go, you know, learning about things. Good. But then I anticipated the problem because I knew that most likely they won't understand. So let's go. And then she said here that there is something that can bring problem also, that is language. That can be the language barrier. Let's see what she said.
If you write a language analysis. The language analysis is vital for you to feel confident about what you're going to teach. Choosing materials, having very nice activities is all fireworks if you're not feeling confident about the topic of the lesson that you're going to teach. That's why the language analysis is one of the most important steps when you write a lesson plan.
She talks about language analysis. For example, a topic talk, something that students is complicated in literature to understand is tone and mood. Okay, one is how what the feeling that the author wants to transmit and how he feels about what he's writing, and the other one is how it makes you feel. Okay, so it's difficult for students to do that, and it's difficult for us as teachers sometimes to explain. So we need to prepare well. We need to understand the topic well. Someone told me, a teacher told me, like, ay, no, eso yo no lo entiendo muy bien. Yo le explico así por encimita, porque la verdad es que yo misma no lo entiendo. Language analysis is there where you have to go study, check videos, being able yourself to understand, and then you go ahead and are able to translate. Let's continue.
Finally, now that everything is ready, it's a good idea to write down all the materials that you're gonna need. Do you have to prepare any handouts? Are you gonna use the course book? What if the students don't have the book? Write everything down so you don't forget anything when you walk into the classroom.
Okay, then she said materials, okay? It is important. For example, in my plan, it says materials and equipment. Equipment, the projector, the computer, the laptop. But let's suppose that this time they have to work a wanted poster, un póster de se busca. So I am gonna need construction paper, I'm gonna need markers, I'm gonna need colors, I'm going to need, a sketch. At first, I asked them to make I asked them to make in a white page a sketch of how it's going to look more or less. I'm going to put this information here, this here, how they're going to organize everything. So what we do is that we put it there, and we usually put it in the platform for parents to see, so they have time to buy whatever they need to buy. This is important because you don't want to be on Thursday telling the kids in the class half day, listen, tomorrow you need some construction paper and some glue and some. That's not okay. So I usually tell them like a week before. I text them again by Teams. I remind them that the day before, and so on. Every day I'm talking to them. So let's take a look at the class tips she has to give.
Tip number 1. Many teachers find it useful to have a template to write lesson plans. And if you think this is going to be useful for you, you can download a template from our blog, whatiselt.com. However, this is not a rule. Every teacher has a different approach to lesson planning. Some teachers write post-its, others write annotations in the course book, and others don't write anything at all. The most important thing is the thinking behind the lesson aim, the stage aims, and the procedures of your lesson. Unless you are taking a teaching award, such as the CELTA or the Delta, then you will be required to submit a formal lesson plan. Tip number 2.
So she's giving some tips, and then the first one is the template. A template is a format that is there. You know what a template is, no? It's a format that is already there, and that you just fill in every time with information. Now, what happens? Most of schools, they give you a template. They tell you, okay, here we work with this, and then you have to fill out this and this and this, and we want it all together, or you just put a small description or whatever, okay? So she mentioned that some teachers don't have, but if you work in a school, most likely you will have to have that.
Regardless of how you write your lesson plan, you need to remember that the most important thing is how you're gonna help your students achieve their aims. What do I mean by that? You can plan a lesson and reuse the lesson plan with many different groups, as long as you make adaptations that cater for the learners' profiles, the learners' characteristics, their needs and preferences.
So, more than the template, the important is how you are going to help your students to get the objective, to learn what they need to learn. And then, again, I go to one class, and what works for me in one class, it doesn't work in the other. Definitely it doesn't work. So it's, you know, it's kind of different. And then sometimes you can reuse them, but sometimes you need to modify them a little bit to adapt them to their needs.
Tip number 3. You may spend hours and hours preparing a lesson and writing a very detailed lesson plan. But if you realize the moment that you start teaching that it's not working, then it might be a good idea to change, adapt, and sometimes to ditch your lesson plan. It is okay not to follow the plan. Don't use the plan as a straitjacket. The most important thing that happens in the classroom is learning. And if you notice that your plan is not helping students learn, you will have to change it. I know that improvising is difficult, but after some classroom practice, it will become easier. You will build a teaching repertoire and you will be more able to improvise and use your plan with flexibility. I hope you liked this video and that it helps you plan lessons even more effectively. Don't forget.
Okay, good. So the last one she says is, if you go to the classroom with your well-known plan, and when you're there, you realize it's not working, you can modify it, or you can simply ditch it. Like, bota ese plan, deshazte de ese plan. And then with experience, then you come to say, like, you know what, I'm going to do this better because it doesn't work. This doesn't work with this student, okay? And it's okay to, if you need to do it, you will do it, okay? So this is basically what we have learned in the video. Let's recap. So first we talk about the lesson aim. The first stage in the preparation of a plan is to know what the lesson aim is, the lesson objective, the lesson goal. Where is that you want to get? The second one is the lesson stages. You need to know what stages you're going to follow in order to teach what you want to teach. The last one is the third one is going to be the timing. When we talk about the timing, we talk about what time you are going to dedicate to each part in your class. Then we have the procedures, what things you are going to, what things you're going to use in order to teach what you want to teach. Then we have the pattern of interaction. Remember, this is, you're most likely going to be in an English class, teaching English, no? So if you're teaching English in an English class, you need them to speak. Sometimes they will be working or something, but most of the time they should be talking. Are they going to be talking always to the same person? How you're going to group them, how they're going to change them, and things like that. Prepare for what can go wrong. If you anticipate what problems you can present, it's going to be easier when you are in the classroom to have a solution for them. Language analysis to make sure to check if you understand well the topic that you're teaching, if you have all the tools to teach what you have to teach, starting with you, your understanding of the topic. Then we have the materials. It's important that you write down the materials that you are going to need for that class. Overall, if it's extra materials other than a pen or a pencil and a notebook, okay? And then, you need to know how you're going to help students to get the objectives, to learn what they have to learn. And finally, if it's necessary, you can ditch the plan, okay? Those are the things that we saw here. So when we talk about this, we talk about, again, the lesson aim, let me recheck. We talk about lesson aim. Then we talk about the lesson stages, then the timing, then the procedures, then the pattern of interaction, then the language analysis, then the materials, then the templates. No. Then the prepare for can go row, problems and solutions, language analysis, and materials. Those are the ones that you need to have into consideration, the 8 phases. And then the others are the tips, the template, like how you're going to get your students to learn and to ditch the plan if necessary. It's very interesting. I love it, to be honest. Haven't? What happened? I lost it. Give me a second. I lost the video. I need to close it because then it's a disaster later because it starts talking or whatever. Give me a moment. Here we go. And then after we have seen this video that is very helpful and that you enjoy listening to her speaking English so clearly, we are going to go, okay? So the objective, identify and develop correctly the 8 phases of a lesson plan. We will check them again at the end, but it's the ones that she mentioned. Lesson aim, lesson aim, lesson stages, the timing, the materials, the what can go wrong, the ditch it if you need it, the pattern of interaction, and one more that I don't remember. Here we are, okay? Now let's go to the first reading that we have for this. And then this is 10 pages, it's a little bit longer. So let's take it easy and let's go ahead and let's read what we need to read about the topic, okay? And then it says that a lesson plan and units, okay? Units, the book and things like that, or how you are going to divide it. A lesson plan is a teacher's detailed description of the course instruction of learning trajectory for a lesson. This is part of what we had in the introduction. Now, we have a man called Frederick Herbert, okay? He was born in 1776 and he died in 1841. And he was the one who developed something called the Herbartian approach, okay? Let's learn a little bit. For him, there are 8 lesson plan phases that are designed to provide many opportunities for teachers to recognize and correct students' misconceptions while extending understanding for future lessons. Now, what are the 8 lesson plan phases he proposes? She spoke about 5, okay? And then we have introduction, foundation, brain activation, body of new information, clarification, practice and review, independent practice, and closure. We counted 9 of them. Sorry, my mistake. As we say in Colombia, I don't know what's going on, pero se me lengua la traba. Okay, good. Now, what happens? Let's see this. Let me close. Good. So again, introduction, foundation, brain activation, body of new information, clarification, practice and review, independent practice, and closure. Okay? This is what I usually follow. They have other names where I work, but it's usually what we do. Okay? Brain activation is exploring what they know from the past. Body of new information is what you explain, clarification to make sure that they understood, practice and review again. So remember this and this and this. Then they have independent practice, and then we close. we close. So it says preparation and instruction. When we talk about preparation and instruction, it says preparing and motivating children to the lesson content by linking to the previous knowledge of the student, arousing curiosity of the children and making an appeal to their senses. This prepares the child's mind to receive new knowledge, okay? Lessons may be started in the following manner. A, 2 or 3 interesting but relevant questions. B, showing a picture or chart or a model. C, a situation statement of aim, announcement of the focus of the lesson in a clear, concise statement such as, today we shall study the. So usually for this preparation and instruction, the first thing is to hook their interest, to catch their interest, you know? Did you know that this and this and this? And why? Then you listen to them to know what part of the topic they already know about, okay? Then, and then after that, you can go ahead and then you tell them, okay, today, our objective for today is to do this in order to learn this and this and this, okay? And then finally, we have and statement to self. Today we are going to study, or we are going to learn about this and this. So that prepares students' mind for what is coming, okay? Presentation and development. The actual lesson commences here. These steps should involve a good deal of activity on the part of students. The teacher will take the aid of various devices, questions, illustrations, explanations, expositions, demonstration, and sensory aids, etc. Information knowledge can be given, explained, revealed, or suggested. The following principles should be kept in mind. A, principle of selection and division. This subject matter should be divided into different sections. The teacher should also decide as to how much is to tell and how much the pupils are to find out for themselves. This is important, okay? There are topics where they have no idea. You talk about figurative language. This year, for the first time, I talk about plot, and they had no idea what we were talking about, okay? Now, the principle B. Principle, and then that's why sometimes you have to explain longer. I'm sorry. Sometimes you have to explain longer, and then you leave them for the activity, and then you have to make sure that they are getting the topic. But sometimes you need to, you have the opportunity to tell them, okay, we're going to do this, the objective is to do this, and at the end you need to get this and this and this. Go, start working. You give them what they need, you tell them what they need, and they start working. And then it says, B, B, principle of successive sequence. Successive sequence. The teacher should ensure that the succeeding as well as preceding knowledge is clear to the student. Okay, that's why sometimes you will need to explain a little bit more, and sometimes after exploring, they understand, you go ahead and tell them what they have to do. Principle of absorption and integration. In the end, separation of the parts must be followed by the combination to promote understanding of the whole. Okay, to see how much they absorbed and how much are able to integrate in their minds, and now it's part of them. Okay, let's continue with number 3, association and comparison. It is always desirable that new ideas or knowledge be associated to daily life situations by citing suitable examples and by drawing comparisons with the related concepts. This step is important when we are establishing principles of generalizing definitions. As much as you can, you try to connect that to real life, okay? Like, for example, our students, they were reading, talking about migration. And then when they are reading a story about a Panamanian that left the country when he was a child. And he had lived by that time, he was, when he's telling the story, he's a grown-up. But he remembers now everything when he was more or less 12 years old. And then what happens is that he feels American. He feels that he is a USA person because he left Panama when he was less than a year. So that he has a conflict of identity because he feels American because he has been there his whole life. However, his father and mother and brother, they tell him that it's in his bones to be Panamanian, that he is Panamanian. Como quien dice, te corre por la sangre panameña. And he doesn't feel like that. And then we have the case that the classmates, they bully him. They bully him because since he's not white or anything, he's very Panamanian-like. He's like not black, but he's like dark skin color, light dark skin color. They bully him because they tell him he's Panamanian, that he should go back, that he's not American. But he feels American. He's been there forever in his life. And then I have many Chinese students, Hindi students, Taiwanese students, Venezuelan students. And then I ask him, What do you feel from? There I am associating this to daily life situations for them to be able to reflect. Generalizing, this concept is concerned with the systematizing of the knowledge learned. Comparison and contrast lead to generalization. An effort should be made to ensure students draw the conclusions themselves. It should rest, resulting in students' own thinking, reflection, and experience. We cannot give them everything masticado and swallow it for them. Like chew and swallow. No, 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 no. They have to chew it, and then they have to swallow it, and then they have to make a decision about the information they have. Application. It requires a good deal of mental activity to think and apply the principles learned to new situations. Knowledge, when it is put to use and verified, becomes clear and a part of students' mental makeup. In this case, let's talk about the plot, okay? The sequence of events in a story. We are working on that, and now they will have to write their own story, and then they will have to highlight with different colors. They have to color code, and they have to put yellow introduction, no sé qué, you see? And then that's the way it goes. So let's continue. Recapitulation. Last step of the lesson plan, the teacher tries to ascertain whether the students have understood or grasped the subject matter or not. This is used for assessing, evaluating the effectiveness of the lesson by asking students questions on the context of the lesson or by giving short objectives to test the students' level of understanding. For example, to label different parts on a diagram. Okay? Then you want to know if they really understood or not, and then you assign something. It can be an evaluation or it can be another time, a project or something. Lesson plans and unit plans, okay? And then here they talk about how a well-known lesson plan reflects the interests and needs of students, okay? And then we have this history lesson plans we are not going to be talking about. Unit plans follow much the same format as a lesson plan, but cover the entire unit of work. My entire unit of work is about migration, and it includes several things, okay? Right now, for this first part of the year. Unit planning is the proper selection of learning activities which present a complete picture. Unit planning is a systematic arrangement of subject matter. The unit plan is for the whole unit, okay? Criteria of a unit plan. When you want to plan a unit for the whole, my whole bimester or bi-monthly is one unit. So you need to have a plan of what's going to be first, what's going to be later. So that is like chunks of each of them, but it's not that extended, you know? However, then in the lesson plan, then for each of the lessons, we're going to develop everything that you need. Needs, capabilities, interests of the learners should be considered. What grade they are, what's the level of English, things like that. Prepare on the sound psychological knowledge of the learner. How are they from here? Provide a new learning experience, systematic but flexible. Okay, you need to do what you need to do, but it can be flexible. You cannot be like this all the time. Sustain attention of the learner until the end. Related to social and physical environment of the learner. And development of learner's personality. That's what you are looking for. Now with the topic of migration, I teach 8th grade. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for to develop their personalities and to develop what they know, because they will understand a little bit more of how life works. It is important to know that lesson planning is a thinking process, not the feeling on a lesson plan. You see, it's a principle. You say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have, but you don't develop it. When we are talking about a lesson plan, we need to have an objective, okay? And the objective drives the whole lesson plan. It is the reason the lesson plan exists, and this is important. The teacher should ensure that lesson plan goals are compatible with the developmental level of the student. You cannot give a student in 8th grade, for example, material for 6th grade that they already saw and that is already basic for them, but you cannot give them a 10th grade where they don't have the cognitive level to understand certain things. The teacher ensures as well that their student achievement expectations are reasonable. how much they wanted to, how much they can do this. Delivery of lesson plans, they say here that at the start of teaching, you need to provide students with an overall picture of the material to be presented, okay? Use as many visual aids as possible and a variety of familiar examples. Organize the material so that it's presented in a logical manner and meaningful units, like in meaningful chunks, en pedazos que tengan significado. Try to use terms and concepts that are already familiar to students, okay? Maximize the similarity between the learning situation and the assessment situation and provide adequate training tactics. Like, for example, I gave them the practice on ellipses with the same format that is coming in the test. So when they see it in the test, they can read, but they know how to do it, okay? To give them the opportunity to apply these skills in their return home through assignments, through tareas that they call, communicate the message about the importance of the lesson, increase their motivation level, and control flighting behaviors by planning rewards for students who successfully complete and integrate the new content. Okay, let's continue. The motivation affects teaching outcomes independently of any increasing cognitive ability. The motivation when they are learning is important. And it's important because it says for many generations, these students, the use of technology can motivate learning, okay? That's a thin line, okay? It's important to create a perceived need for learning, okay? It's important that you learn and understand this because we live in a globalized world. And even Panama has been affected during its whole history by the entrance of immigrants, okay? That's why we are learning about immigration, in my case, okay? Good. Then we talk about lesson plans and classroom management. And it's important because if you have a good lesson plan, it's easier to have good classroom management. This one you can study by yourself. And then it says that the assignment can be done to complete at home or to complete in the next class period. Usually we give everything to complete in the period for them to do in class and to be able to understand, okay? But every school has different ways to say. There are several types of assignments that the teacher may use. A whole class, when it's an assignment that the whole class has to participate in classroom discussions, and small groups, 3 or 4, they work and they develop something. Workshops, when they perform, all of them are performing something at the same time. Independent work, when everyone is working individually. Peer learning, when students work together, 2 people face-to-face, and contractual work. And it's when you make an agreement with students to do something by a deadline. You tell them, okay, you have to do this, and then by next Friday, today is Monday, by Friday, you're supposed to upload it in Teams or to hand it in, and it's the last opportunity. Now, you need to ask a couple of questions when you want to choose the type of activity that you're going to use. What level of learning do students need to attain before choosing the thing? Is this going to take me there? What is the time, the amount of time the instructor wants the students to use to complete the assignment? How much time and effort does the instructor have to provide student grading and feedback? That's important. What's the purpose of the assignment? What's the aim? What is what you want to know? How does the assignment fit with the rest of the lesson plan? Or is something that has nothing to do? Does the lesson plan fit a particular framework, like Common Core lesson plan, like the one that we use where I work, that is Common Core standards, okay? And then we have the references. So, people, let's go here. And I'm gonna say one more time, I would like to have the opportunity to see you in class, at least one, okay? So, no, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm good at making mistakes. Okay, coming. So, here. Okay, so today's class objective, identify and develop correctly the 8 phases of a lesson plan. And then we had what she said in the video. And then we have what we have here. Now, all of them are valid, okay? In the video, she mentions things to prepare the lesson plan. And then here, they mention actually the way the order the lesson plan should follow, okay? Now, this is the class objective for today. Do you think we got it? I think we did. We shot the video one, the reading one, and then these are the activities for next class. We have a forum where we have the question, what are the 8 lesson plan phases? Remember to use the one that we check in the reading, okay, from Frederick Hegberg. And then we have activity 2, you have to make a summary, okay? Now, they have here, you have these two over here. You have to check this video, you have to do this, and then using all this, you need to make a summary, okay? And it says, find information on how a summary is structured. And then you are going to say, it says, participate in the activity, making your contribution. And you have here all the activities that you have to do. You have the start of the activity, where to do it, and then finally, you have to work on your test. This is a lot of work, so I invite you to start working on that as soon as possible, okay? So thank you much for watching the video. I do hope you guys have a nice weekend. Next Friday, we will see each other because of Semana Santa, because of Easter. But I will see you, I think, on the 6th, or if not on the 9th. I will see you from 6 to 7, 6:15 to 7:15. The people from CETES will contact you, and then they will let you know about it, okay? Thank you so much, people. Best of the weekend for you. Take care. Bye-bye. Miss, terminamos.
Gracias, profesora y estudiantes. Damos por finalizada la sesión de hoy. Que pasen buenas noches.